ahead and get this meeting started since it's 1 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Let's see here. Clerk Vlasic, can you take the roll, please?
He's muted.
Unmute yourself. So, Clerk Vlasic, you just need to, there's a button in the lower left-hand side. It should be red right now, and you need to touch that so you unmute yourself.
There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Melissa Luck.
Here.
Sean Murphy-Lope.
Here.
Ed Cosgrove.
Here.
Don Seep.
Here, can you hear me?
Harry Severson.
Harry Severson present.
You have 5 present.
Okay, so we have a quorum, so we can conduct our business today. So Clerk Vlasic, was there proper proof of notification for the meeting? And can you please list the places where you notified the public?
Most of the Observer, the website, all the committee members, and on the county bulletin board.
Okay, thank you. That's practice for next Tuesday for Supervisor Gentis. Agenda item number 3 is the agenda approval. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
This is Chad.
Okay, so motion by Supervisor Cosgrove and a second Supervisor Peterson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, so we've got a 7-point agenda approved by the committee. Agenda item number 4, proposed resolution thanking the Phoenix Center for Space to conduct meetings during the pandemic. So Administrator Langreck.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Before I start, I just wanted to, I had it expressed to me, a couple of folks had concerns with when I'm sharing my screen, sometimes everybody's control keys on the bottom kind of disappear and they're not able to find the button to mute. So I'm hoping that folks, when I am sharing, if you press your iPad screen just once on the screen, those control buttons pop back up, the mute, the stop video, the share, the log out button. So if you have troubles with that, you're unable to access those so you can unmute yourself, please let me know so we can devise a workaround. Mr. Chair, today looking for a motion to recommend to the county, the Richland County Board of Supervisors, a resolution thanking the Phoenix Center for use of the banquet hall to accommodate multiple county board and committee meetings. And this was in response to the COVID pandemic, where we had multiple county board meetings as well as several of our committee meetings there. In working with Corporation Counsel, he has drafted a resolution for county board next Tuesday, looking for approval out of this committee by committee structure D as the home for places that for resolutions to originate that don't have a necessarily assigned committee. Mr. Chair.
Any questions or comments, or anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept.
Okay, we'll do a motion by Supervisor Luck and a second by Supervisor Severson. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Agenda item number 5, amendments to change Rule 14 regarding Department Expenditure Authority. Administrator Langreck.
Mr. Chair, this one might get a little more complicated than it probably should have, and I apologize for that. Let me just kind of say the change here. So the premise of it is right now the Rule 14 allows departments to go up to $1,000 or less. The language changes that are being presented today include language for $1,999.99 or less. In communicating with people that are far smarter than me, I think what we're going to end up doing is changing that $1,999.99 to $2,000, and then we'll have a little bit neater policy language. So with that context, looking today for a motion to propose amendments to the Richland County Board Rule number 14, increasing expenditure authority and threshold of the department heads from $1,000 or less, and then please strike that and say to $2,000 or less. Background on this item: current language of the Richland County Board rules contains ambiguous language that leads to some confusion regarding expenditure authority. The current language states that if the purchase price of the needed property, including computers, is $1,000 or less, the department head may make the purchase upon obtaining at least one quotation of a vendor. If the purchase price of the needed property, including computers, is $2,000 to $5,000, the purchase must be made by the appropriate committee. The 1,000 then to 2,000 range kind of leads for some confusion on whether or not it needs to be brought to a committee. By default, it is often brought to a committee. So we're requesting the language change then today to kind of cover that gap. And again, requesting language from the 1,000 to 2,000. So the actual changes to the proposed language for Rule 14 would read under here, changing the 1,000 now to 2,000, and then where it says in between 2,000 and 5,000, we would change that to say is greater than 2,000 and up to 5,000 to not cause confusion if it were to happen to land right on 2,000. But the main premise and point today is to cover the gap and allow for authority up to $2,000, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so thank you for bringing this forward to us. So when we were working on our agenda, I believe it was for the Finance and Personnel Committee last week for this past Tuesday's meeting, our MIS department came forward with a request to spend $1,800 on some sort of a power backup supply for our server. And they had to call me to make it an emergency request because they had to do it right away. Plus they had to come to the committee to get the amount approved because it was $1,800 and change. And that's when we noticed this, or maybe other people have noticed it before, but myself and Administrator Langrick noticed this odd spot where we don't really give direction to staff about how to handle these purchases between $1,000 and $2,000. So he's prepared this for us. I'm wondering if that's just a little back. I'm wondering if committee members have any questions or comments about this.
Mr. Chair, I mean,
Yep,
it seems like it clears. It seems like it clears up, kind of a gray area. So I think anytime we can make clarity happen, I think it's a good thing. So I think we should. I would make a motion to approve this change.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Luck.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Seep.
I will second the motion and request a discussion.
Okay, second by Supervisor Seep, and go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'm certainly in favor of this motion. However, there was some discussion of default reference to the committee or referral to the oversight committee. Is that still going to be the case? I know that in the case of MIS, their oversight committee, of course, is apparently finance and personnel. But there are other very small departments who have very small budgets with a limited amount of ability to spend money. And I think it is appropriate that in the case of their spending $1,000 or $2,000, that there should be a protocol for their at least advising, asking for the advice and consent of their own oversight committee or the administrator.
Yeah, so one thing I was just looking for, Supervisor Seep, when you started bringing this up is, and maybe the administrator knows more about, or can pull this off the top of his head, but maybe it was in the strategic plan that the county board has adopted, or maybe it was somewhere else. I know that one of our goals is to change our purchasing policy. Am I remembering this correctly? So that purchases are no longer going through, um, all these different committees, and that there would be some sort of administrative oversight for that, Mr. Langrick?
That is one of our goals for strategic planning, and I don't think it's to completely eliminate requirements for committees to have oversight and discretionary authority, but to grant more authority, essentially kind of raise the ceiling for administration, but obviously to still provide accountability and transparency to those committees.
Okay, and yeah, while you were explaining it that way, I found it on our strategic plan. It's number 7. It's develop finance and purchasing policy. And in parentheses, it says increase administrative authority on purchasing. So Supervisor Seep, I think you're right for now. I don't know the exact language that's in our handbook. If there is language on it, the employee handbook or the administrative manual. But currently, most of the committees do approve the bills for different departments, and I don't foresee that changing with this change.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm not talking about approving the bills. That's too late. I'm talking about approving the expenditure before a bill can be generated. Somebody wants to spend $2,000 for something in a small office where they have a very small budget. The committee, the immediate committee has a responsibility to know what that money is being spent for and should have a courtesy of input. I don't mind the authority, but I think that there should be a procedure for the advice and consent of the committee. Given the fact that we are supposed to be very budget conscious.
So the way Rule 14 is written right now, so for expenditures of $1,000 or less, there's nothing about the committee being involved in pre-approving that purchase. I understand what you're saying now, but for the purchases between $2,000 and $5,000, there is. It says that the purchase must be made by the appropriate committee of the county board after having obtained a minimum of 3 quotations from vendors, if reasonably possible. So I'm a little confused now. Are you saying that you are in support of this change or opposed to it?
I'm supportive of it, but I'm hopeful that it entails the ability of the oversight committee to not be bypassed, to be involved to the extent that they are informed and offer their commentary.
Well, the oversight committee would not be informed of this necessarily before the fact for purchases of $2,000 or less under this proposed change. They would only be involved when the purchases were $2,000 to $5,000. So that's why I'm wondering if you're opposed. I think that's why I was kind of confused.
On that basis, I'm opposed.
Okay. Okay, other committee members? Thoughts or questions on this?
Mr. Chair?
Yep, go ahead.
I guess I would like a little clarification. Perceive the administrator's role. I mean, I don't think that we're going to have departments, especially the small departments with small budgets, that are going to be spending $2,000 lightly and with or their committee chair. But
Luck, can you stop your video and just repeat what you were saying, because you cut out twice, so we couldn't quite hear all of that.
How's that?
Go ahead. Yeah, we'll try it again. So if you don't mind starting from the beginning.
Yeah, I guess I would like a little clarity just from, I mean, I think that what Supervisor Seep is bringing up is a good point. We have this window of $1,000 to $2,000. Would not have committee oversight with this change, but it seems like our department heads are very responsible, especially the smaller departments, and they are very frugal with their departmental funds. And I don't see them just randomly spending $2,000 without talking to their committee chair. So I guess I'm in favor of this change as long as we know that the administrator is going to be, probably will have language clarifying his role in all of this. Does that make sense?
Well, I think there's a possibility that the development of that purchasing policy would do some of that, but right now that's not in place.
Mr. Chairman.
So I don't know if Administrator Langreck, if you want to give any thoughts on that.
I haven't got into really putting together a policy to understand where the different thresholds should be for transparency. Obviously, different committees operate with different types of expenditures. The case that kind of brought this up was through MIS department that is dealing with purchases that are typically in the 1,000 range versus other departments that may not be operating in that type of a level. How much involvement and oversight that you'd still like to have on these items is kind of the part that I'm hoping the policy brings in place. The check and balances that still fall on these is, of course, that they have to still comply with being within budget, within the proposed budget schemes, as well as through auditing committee and those types of mechanisms that are still there.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead.
I appreciate Administrator Langreck's comments. He indicated that he hasn't had an opportunity yet to review this. I believe that our administrator should have an opportunity to look at this and come back with a proposed policy. I believe we have the cat or the cart before the horse here. I ask that we postpone this until the administrator has an opportunity to review and propose.
Okay, so I think that's let's see. Right now on the floor, we have a motion to approve this, and you seconded it. So are you withdrawing your second?
I am.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, by procedure, since the motion has been seconded, it's on the floor, it belongs to the body. We have to ask for a motion from the body to have it withdrawn from the floor.
Okay, thanks. That's cool. So let me just not address that motion to postpone right now, and then we'll see if folks want to withdraw it. I guess my concern about just postponing this item is that there is, the way Rule 14 is written right now, this middle land of $1,000 to $2,000. We're not giving direction to department heads very clearly or staff at the county about how to make these purchases. So,
yeah.
I think if folks, I'm not sure if others are uncomfortable with this beyond you, Supervisor Seat, but if folks want to review purchases that are above $1,000 before they're made by the department head, then I think conversely, what we need to do is we need to say that between $1,000 and $5,000, department heads need to involve their supervisory committee and get them 3 quotes. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead.
I believe that we owe the administrator, that's what we hired him for. We owe the administrator the courtesy of allowing him the opportunity to review and propose. He's indicated that he hasn't had an opportunity to look at this. That's why we hired him. He's in the process of developing policies and procedures, and no matter how minute or magnificent this proposal is, I believe it should be referred to the administrator. It's not a big deal. Nobody's going to go to hell over this. Nobody's going to go to jail over this. But let's get it right. In my view, and that's only my opinion, I think that we should postpone it.
Okay, let's let the other committee members talk here. But I'm curious to know their thoughts.
I'm fine either way, honestly. If we decide to have Clint review it a little bit more before we go, but I understand the necessity of it as well and the importance of clearing it up. So,
Okay. Supervisor Severson, you have any thoughts?
Will Clint be able to review the purchase that's supposed that just be approved by the administrator?
Well, so currently Administrator Langrick does not review purchases and approve them. That all falls to the oversight committees and to the county board. Am I correct, Administrator Langrick?
That's correct. The language still calls for purchases through this to be made to be handled by the supervisory committee, and then once hitting the threshold onto the county board. So, and just to kind of clarify, it's like I've reviewed this and I understand this change, and I am still an advocate of thinking this is a good idea. It does not solve all of our problems, but it does help correct a current ambiguity. That's the word.
There you go.
I was lagging there. I know the word. It clears that up. The discretionary point that I guess is the comfort level brought to the committee then is the threshold. And as you had talked about, in efforts to try to clear up this language, then it's what do you feel is appropriate for a department head to approve of 1,000 currently or up to a $2,000 threshold. Other languages of the involvement for an administrator to get involved on purchases, we don't have any other types of language currently that are in there. There's intentions to bring forward what that should look like, but again, that's not in there. So I don't have any type of developed opinions or plans on what a future purchasing policy should look like. Excuse me, at this point.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Severson. You might also have to turn your video off too, because last time it was a little choppy. Your internet connection might be slow. Sorry. Give that a try.
When was Rule 14 created? What year? You know that? So
You got me.
So my thinking is like Rule 14 was created like a few years back or a while back, probably before I was on the board. But in that time, inflation increases, everything increases. And so I think at the time where $1,000 may have bought a computer, now it's probably going to be more than that for buying a computer for other stuff. So I think that we just need to go with the times and increase it a little bit more than what it was. So I guess I would be in favor of doing that. And most of them are going to be emergency purchases if they are, and they're going to need it regardless if we say no. And if we don't, that might be a hindrance. So I would be in favor of it.
Okay. And the other point that Administrator Langreich made about he hasn't thought through that policy yet. I want to point out that it was number 7 on the list, and we have much higher priorities at this point. And so I would speak against not making a change today. We just need to figure out. I believe we just need to figure out what change to make, and it doesn't prevent the administrator from thinking through purchasing policy change in the future. I think this is a relatively minor change, but we just need to be clear about what we want department heads to do. So, I mean, maybe a compromise approach, if folks are amenable to it, is just making the cutoff $1,500 instead of $1,000, and I'd be fine with that. You know, we just need to, I believe we just need to make a decision as a committee and recommend that to the county board.
Mr. Chair.
Yep, go ahead, Supervisor Cosgrove.
And I would say if we're going to make a change, let's make the change as written and just leave it.
Mr.
Yep,
Chairman?
Supervisor Seep, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate, you seem to be saying that you're now in favor of postponing this. Maybe I misunderstood you, but it isn't the amount of money, it's how it's spent that is an issue. And I know, I've been on this board for a number of years, and I know of instances where a department head has arbitrarily spent money that for an item that was not, or a service that was not necessary, was never even discussed or considered by the committee. And as Everett Dirksen said, $1,000 here and $1,000 there, pretty soon you're talking about a lot of money. Only he said $1 million here and $1 million there. I don't want to micromanage here, but I want to see a clear policy that maintains a chain of accountability, period.
Okay. So right now we've got a motion and a second on the floor. I think we've discussed this a fair amount, so I'm going to go ahead and request a roll call on the motion. So Clerk Vlasic, if you don't mind.
Mr. Chair, would you state the motion?
Yes, I would be happy to do that. So the motion.
Mr. Chair, if I could, it would be to propose amendment to the Richland County Board Rule number 14, increasing expenditure authority threshold of department heads from 1,000 or less, and then line change to 2,000 or less. And then we would have to do we would make Rule 14 then comply with that, with the additional sentence change of, rather than stating between 2,000 and 5,000, it would be more than 2,000 into 5,000.
Okay, so that's the motion. So Clerk Vlasic, if you could take the roll on this one, please.
Melissa Luck,
Yes.
John Murphy Lopez,
Yes.
Chad Cosgrove,
Yes.
Gary Severson,
Yes.
Don Seep,
Yes.
Gary Severson is in favor.
all five voting in favor.
Okay, so that motion passes. So thanks everyone for that discussion. So agenda item number 6, proposed resolution on fair maps advisory referendum. So usually I hand items off to Mr. Langreck, but I'm gonna introduce this item, and that's how it was written as well. I guess I didn't feel comfortable asking the administrator. This tends to be more of oh gosh, what would I say? It's more of a political issue at the state level that a lot of counties have gotten involved in, including our county in the past. And so I just wanted to introduce this template resolution to the committee, since this committee is responsible for sponsoring resolutions that don't come out of other committees. And so I think this was appropriate for the committee, which is why I asked for it to be on the agenda for at least this committee to consider. So this is a recommended motion to present a resolution to the county board to conduct a county-wide advisory referendum on creation of nonpartisan procedure for the preparation of legislative and congressional redistricting maps, plans and maps. So the background on here is that back in October of 2017, so 2 terms ago with a different board of supervisors, the board passed resolution 17-99, which was about this topic. And that is, so these are all online and on our iPads. for folks to look at. And that attachment is attached, and it's a 4-page attachment. And on the second page, there's a yellow highlighted section, which shows the resolution that the board adopted at that point. And it was approved by the Rules and Resolutions Committee at that time, and then on to the full county board. So that's the first attachment. Then let's see. So at that time, only one other county in the state had approved, their voters had approved passing an advisory referendum regarding fair maps, and that was Dane County back in April of 2014. And since 2017, 27 additional counties have passed an advisory referendum. And that's attachment B, which Mr. Langreich is showing us right now. And what caught my eye about this after the November 3rd election was we are almost now surrounded by counties, with the exception of Grant, where the voters have passed an advisory referendum. So these counties in dark purple have both passed a resolution like Richland County has, and they've put a referendum, an advisory referendum forward to their voters. And out of the surrounding counties, so Crawford just approved it in November, Iowa County just approved it in November of this year, a few weeks ago, and then Sauk County had approved it in November of 2018, and Vernon County did it in the spring election in April of 2019. So then attachment C is a template for a resolution that we could use for an advisory referendum if this committee and the county board wants to go forward with it. It would need to, by the way I was estimating it, according to state law, it would need to be adopted at either our December or our January county board meeting. And that's due to Wisconsin statute 8.37, which requires that referenda questions be filed with the official or agency responsible for preparing the ballots no later than 70 days prior to the election, at which the amendment would appear on the ballot. And so my comment there is, I figured, what would 70 days prior to April 6th be? And that would be Tuesday, January 6th. That's the 4th Tuesday of the month. So the latest that we could approve something and have it be on the spring ballot would be the 3rd Tuesday of January at our board meeting. So that's all the information. Obviously, I'm bringing this forward because I think it would be a good thing for our voters to weigh in on. 28 out of the 28 counties that have put this on the ballot, the voters have approved it. So it seems to be something that's gained pretty widespread support, at least in those other counties and in other counties similar to ours that are our neighbors. So with that, I'm going to the other members for your questions or comments.
Curious here.
Yeah.
In the past, when county board members have brought up doing a referendum, we're always told that it would be at a cost to do a referendum. What is the cost of doing a referendum for us?
Yeah, so I did actually do a little research on that. First, I guess, let's see, if we go to Mr. Langert, do you mind bringing up attachment C again? At the very bottom of the template resolution, there's something about cost on there. So I just want to make sure to read that to folks. So there's a fiscal note at the bottom. And, you know, obviously this is a template, so we could alter it, but it says there will be minimal cost to the county depending on the size of the ballot. And the person I talked to who has worked on a fair amount of these across the state said that in their experience, when they discussed this with clerks, it oftentimes depended on whether or not there was going to be a page 2 to the ballot, or a second, or say a third, an additional page. You know, so if this advisory referendum pushes, you know, other items further down the page to create a new one, that's where there would be an additional cost. And I don't know what the cost of that would be, but this oftentimes, you know, depending on how many people run for a seat, say how many people run for president or town board or whatever it is, that's oftentimes what ends up increasing the cost, is my understanding.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Supervisor Seep.
I appreciate Supervisor Severson's questions. He always asks intelligent questions. I want to speak in favor of this. The cost question is a minimal matter. You have a template, and it's merely a matter of the cost of printing that additional paragraph or less on the ballot. The cost would arise from, since you have a template, that obviates the question of cost significantly. The cost would otherwise arise because the county may require very specialized legal counsel to prepare a resolution, prepare a ballot matter, a ballot referendum. That this is not the case here. The reason I want to speak in favor of this is, and I think it's essentially important to what we cherish as our democracy. If you look at Dane County and you are a Republican, you don't have a chance in hell of having your vote count if you want to vote for a Republican candidate for Congress. The same is true here, mostly in the 3rd District, where Representative Kind represents. Because of redistricting a number of years ago, this district has been organized in favor of a Democrat. And if you're a Republican in the 3rd District, you don't have much of a chance of having your vote count if you want a Republican representing you. In Milwaukee, which is also, and part of its surrounding area, which is also represented by a Democrat, it is a solidly Democratic district. It was redistricted that way. There are other districts that are solidly Republican. And if you're a Democrat in those districts, you don't have a chance in hell of ever seeing your candidate become a congressman. That is all because politicians have organized redistricting to secure certain seats. And it is really a very unfair approach to our democracy. And this is an opportunity for us to have input and to put some pressure on changing it. Let all the people be represented on a one man, one vote premise. So I'm strongly in favor of this. I speak not as a partisan here, but as one who believes very strongly in everyone having an equal shot. Thank you.
So are you suggesting that people are voting more than once?
No, that has nothing to do with it.
You said one man, one vote. This redistricting makes it sound like there's 2 votes happening here.
No, I'm saying that one man's vote doesn't count because he's in a district that is, I hate to use the word rigged because it's been used so much, has been sort of set up so that his vote really doesn't count. He doesn't have a chance in hell of getting his candidate elected if the district is organized in favor of the opposite party. That's what I'm saying.
I do think to your question, you know, I've learned quite, you know, obviously I ran for state assembly this past year and I did sit down with former state Senator Dale Schultz over the summer just to learn more about this because I didn't quite understand how gerrymandering would affect our local districts. Actually, it didn't seem to me to affect them a whole lot. and I know a lot of people disagree with me about that. A lot of people think that, Democrats lose out in this area because of gerrymandering. I'm not sure if that's really the case. But the way he told it to me, it might be kind of interesting to get a presentation from him. I'm not sure if him and former state senator Tim Cullen are still doing this. He's a Democrat. They've been going around the state, talking about how this actually works differently in 2010. And the way he explained it to me is that they had hired consultants and they had new computer programs that can figure out basically how to move, say, like the village of Avoca, from one district to another, because they know it leans Democrat, and so they don't want it to be in that other district because it's they might as well put it in the safe Democratic district instead of it helping out the district that's more teetering on the edge. And he said that really starts around the cities. That's where they start drawing these districts, and then they work out from there to the edges of the state. I'm not an expert on this. I know those guys, those two former state senators know a lot more about it. So I think there's a lot of detail, and we could get into more of that. And if folks want, we could certainly, I could Dale Schultz, because maybe he'd be interested in talking to us about it. I'm not sure, but
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, let's just see if there's anyone else first. Let's just spread this around a little bit.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to talk. It's Melissa.
Go ahead, Supervisor Luck.
So a number of years ago, Dale Schultz and Tim Cullen did come to Richland Center and do a presentation on fair maps, and it was very well attended by a lot of people. I was surprised. I guess I wasn't totally surprised, because it is a very big issue, and there's a lot of people that are concerned about this. And it just boggles my mind. I don't understand how anyone wouldn't want the maps to just be drawn fairly by, nonpartisan. I think is the most important part of this entire effort, is that it should be done not by the people who have something to gain by how they draw the maps. So, I'm definitely in favor of this, and I think we should let the people decide how important this is. That's the point of a referendum. Let's find out what the citizens of Richland County think on this matter. And I don't know why anyone wouldn't want the maps to be drawn in a fair way, and it shouldn't favor either party. So that's just my thoughts.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak?
I agree. I'm in favor of it.
Okay, thanks, Supervisor Cosgrove.
Mr.
Supervisor
Chairman.
Severson, did you want to add anything else? I was kind of responding to your question to Supervisor Seat.
No, I'm fine.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Okay, we've made it back to you, Supervisor Seat.
Yeah, I hate to talk so much, but it boils down to this. The way the present system works, the candidates pick their voters instead of the voters picking their candidates because of the way it's rigged. And in this case, that's a fair description of them. How do you like the fact that Richland County has not just one assembly district, but how many? 1, 2, 3? 3 different representatives in one little county here. In Cazenovia, a portion of the village is cut off and put in another district, so that the people in one part of town can't vote at the village hall. They got to travel several miles to Lime Ridge to vote. It's crazy, and it's all done for political purposes. And the political purpose is for the candidates, the establishment candidates, the incumbents, to pick the voters rather than the voters having an opportunity to pick who they want. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Supervisor Seat.
Mr. Chair?
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, one more question. Would it be possible to get some kind of fiscal estimate before this goes to the county board? Because it seems like that might be the main thing that might hang us up is how much it's potentially, even a ballpark of potentially how much it might cost.
And your question is how much it might cost Richland County government?
Correct. Well, I'm assuming
Okay.
come out of our budget, right? And we don't have a budgeted item for this.
Well, let's ask Clerk Vlasic how the budget works for elections and printing of ballots.
All election costs are paid by the county.
And what is your does that include the printing of ballots for, say I live in the town of Bloom, does the county pay for the printing of ballots for the town of Bloom?
Yes.
Okay. And was my summary of what I heard from that one person who has worked on similar resolutions around the state correct, that if it pushes it to an additional page, is that when the cost increases?
Referendum ballots are usually a separate ballot anyway. Everybody in the state has a different type of voting equipment. We now have 3 different types. We have paper ballots, touchscreen, and 6 of the municipalities have purchased a different type of system, which I haven't even seen yet. So I could not begin to estimate the cost.
Okay. So also just to follow up on Supervisor Luck's question, do we, within the county clerk's office's budget, is there a separate line item for elections, or is it more integrated into all the different line items for your office's budget?
We have an elections budget.
And what is that for the coming year? Do you know that off the top of your head?
It's a carry forward account, and it was 30,000. I can't guarantee that 30 won't be eaten up by this year's extra costs.
So we placed an additional $30,000 in the 2021 budget for elections?
Yes.
Okay, and then do you know what and you're saying you don't know what your carryover balance will be from 2020 at this point?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Supervisor Luck, do you have any follow-up questions on that?
No, I mean, it would be nice if we, had some idea, but I think this is important enough that we should move forward with this regardless of the cost. I just think we do need to be cognizant of where we will find it in the budget if it exceeds the clerk's normal election budget.
One thing that I could do too before the county board meeting is I could reach out to that same person and see if they have any written cost estimates from other counties. But I wonder if they got similar answers from other clerks around the state.
Well, I'm wondering. I'm sorry. I'm just wondering if the ones that just did it this past November, if they might have some idea of how much extra it costs to get it on the ballot.
So that would have been Crawford
in Iowa.
Yeah, yeah. I could contact those clerks since they're neighbors, just to see. So good question. Okay, if there's no further discussion on it, I think I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Did we get a motion in a second?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make
So
a
Okay, we'll do a motion by Supervisor Luck and a second by Supervisor Seep. And then let's do a roll call on this, please. Clerk Vlasic.
Gary Severson,
Yes.
Don Seep,
Aye.
Chad Cosgrove,
Yes.
Melissa Luck,
Hi.
Don Murphy Lopez,
Yes.
5 in favor.
Okay, so that motion is adopted. Thanks, everyone. Agenda item number 6. I'm sorry. 7 is adjournment. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
This Chad, I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay,
Peterson seconds.
motion by Supervisor Cosgrove and a second by Supervisor Luck. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you later.
Congratulations on a good meeting.
Thanks, Don. Bye-bye. Glad you could come.
Sorry, I missed the last one.